Hello there, Thando Book Club lovers. We are so happy to have you join us as we talk to African female authors about their books and the stories behind them. As is our custom, we always begin every episode with a quote from a famous African that we believe captures the spirit and message of the author we'll be interviewing. Today's quote is, "Africans, they're tired. They're tired of being the subject of everybody's charity and care. We are grateful, but we know that we can take charge of our own destinies if we have the will to reform." And that quote is from Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the World Trade Organization. This quote sums up what our guest today embodies with respect to her work and desire to empower others financially. Meet Shalom Govero, a trainer, speaker, e-facilitator and coach in social finance. With accreditation from the International Labour Organization, she trains in various financial, education and business courses in Zimbabwe and the region. Shalom has featured on various weekly local radio programs for the past 3 years and authored the book, The Personal Finance Game Plan, a must-have for Zimbabwean young people starting their financial journeys. She is also a Zimtrade consultant, facilitating financial management sessions for SMEs preparing for export. As a member of Global Shapers Harare Hub, she leads the Shaped Financial Literacy Project aimed at financial education for youth in schools. She has written for publications such as the Sunday Mail, Nzira Magazine, and Bulawayo24. She is also a trained e-facilitator and has trained 5,000 and over participants through various online financial literacy courses curated for the Zimbabwean market. Shalom, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. Now, you first appeared on the book club in March, and I did say to you I was definitely going to have you back.
Yes.
And we were talking before and you were like, I didn't believe. Well, I hope you believe now.
I do. Thank you so much.
So starting with the interview, why did you first start writing?
So for me, it came out of a conversation I had with a client. So I train WhatsApp classes often. And I had given myself a target to write one blog article on personal finance issues once every month. So it was kind of like a challenge that I set up. I think this was 2019, and I was just trying it out. Then my very first article hit a nerve, and one client came to my inbox and said, "Hey, I think you should consider writing a book. You really know how to sort of like break down, financial concepts and make them relatable in written form. And we like the way you've written this particular article. Consider it." And I kind of laughed at it because I thought, I'm not really a writer. I'm more of a trainer, more of a speaker. I love just talking. That's what I enjoy doing. And I just thought, writing, okay, maybe in the future. And then I ignored it. And then I had someone again say to me again, I think in another conversation, and it started to kind of grow on me. And I spoke to a few other colleagues and friends who know my work, and they said, "Hey, we've been thinking about this too. You should definitely take it up." And that's how the book came to be. So it came out of conversations, and then I thought, this is actually a good idea. So the blog articles morphed into the book.
That's very interesting. I think it's interesting using the written word to bring illumination and enlightenment around numbers. And also because numbers can be so intimidating for many people because we associate it with maths. Yet we're spending money and receiving money every day of our lives.
That's true.
So I think that's very interesting about people who write about money, demystifying it. So the blogs morphing into books. What did that process look like? Because it's one thing writing a blog for the month. It's another thing making that into something that can be developed and well thought out and fleshed out into a book. What did that process look like for you?
So two things. Initially, when I set out to write the book, I had very big ideas, very ambitious of me, I think. And I sort of came up with a very big, ambitious title, something that I wanted to write about. And then as I wrote, I think I wrote like the first chapter, and I thought, this is not working out. Let me go back to the blog articles that I'd been writing. So I went back there, and I realized that there was a theme that had kind of formulated as I wrote. And I thought, I actually have content here. Let me put these together, but take more time on each topic. So like you said, when it's a blog article, it's also quite shortened because you're trying to do a lot of things maybe in like on one page. And I also had, blogs that I'd been writing for magazines, for newspaper articles, so they had, strict sort of word limits. But I took those and I thought, let me continue with the story behind all of these articles. And then also the second thing was, from radio, there are a lot of conversations that happen on radio. So when I'm doing my shows on radio, there's a lot of back and forth. There people will send you messages. There people will ask you real life questions, and you have to think of solutions and all of that. And I thought, let me also add those frequently asked questions, but then put them in the context of the book. So if I'm talking about goal setting, what are some of the frequently asked questions, and then handle them in the book. So I got my inspiration from those two places and then began to write. So a lot of it was, actually, I think I've got this article, let me put this here, and then let me flesh it out with the stories of people, and then my own stories. I got an opportunity to really talk about things that I have done, and then things that my friends have done. So it really just kind of sort of flowed out of that. And then the book was born from that.
Definitely. I love the fact that your book traces your personal stories, like throughout your whole life, right? I think which highlights our lifelong relationship with money and finance, and what that accrues or parlays into from a perspective of wealth generation and transferable wealth. But I also love that it was the process of helping other people and those people's responses that led you on your journey and kind of like taught you and said, wait, here, this is the thing to press in on. This is the thing to flesh out. And for sure, it's kind of like market research or beta readers. For sure that the content is actually going to work, and, people are hungry for it.
That's it.
So in terms of writing about finance as an African woman, traditionally women are more seen than heard, especially when it comes to the big power issues in the house, of which money is one. Why did you choose as an African female to write about finance, to even begin the journey of financial literacy and empowerment of other people in that vein?
Wow, good question. Most of it is rooted in my mother's story. So she was a single mom for 18 years. And she's well known in the finance space. She's a microfinance expert. And in our home, as a single mom, she was very strong-willed and very disciplined about money issues. And she taught me money issues from a young age. And it's something that became sort of part and parcel of our household conversations. So I didn't think it weird until I actually stepped outside and realized, actually, these conversations are not had that common, you know what I mean? So I owe it to my mother. I think she helped me start off the journey, and she's a financial education trainer herself, actually master trainer, that's what we call her. And I remember her saying to me, you've got a knack for training. So if you wanted, I could teach you, the easier courses, the social finance courses, because I see how you love to relate to people. So maybe let's pick the social finance courses. And that's how I started the journey in financial literacy. So she picked a few courses, financial literacy for youth initially. And I loved the content. I related with it. And then I just connected with it, and I said, I'm going to run with this. But also because for me, I'm a process thinker, and I love to articulate issues. So for me, I know that money generally is problematic, but for me, it's like, I want to talk about it because it's problematic. I think because of the way I'm made.
Well, Shalom, that's very fascinating, but let me stop you there for now. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about the issues and themes that are drawn out in Shalom's book. We can't wait to see you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're here in the studio on the Thando Book Club talking the personal finance game plan with Shalom Govero. So Shalom, let's get into some of the topics you uncover in the book. So one of the first things you have people do in the book is do a financial audit. And it's got a certain number of pillars, which you would find in any basic audit. And this kind of sets up the strategy for people entering or beginning their journey into financial freedom. Can you elaborate on some of those pillars and why it's important for us to have a good understanding of them?
So the idea was that if you're going to start a strategy, you need to look at what areas are you struggling in? What are some of the gaps that you have? So the pillars are very easy. It's just 4 of them: income, spending patterns, assets, and skills. So it's really to say you need to have a critical self-analysis of what you have before you start working on what you need to get, out of the personal finance game plan, so to speak. So I think the reason why I put it in also is because a lot of us don't really track some of these things. We don't track our income. We're not really sure of our spending patterns. We are like, I think school fees is a problem, but we don't really know, like what's really happening in your expense side of things. You don't really want to look at that. So I really push you to do that. And then assets, there's so many of us who say I don't have anything. I want to start a business, but I don't have anything. I don't have any money. I don't have anything. And then they've got like piles and piles of like expensive handbags and shoes that they're not wearing and all of that. Skills inventory, what can you do? What comes easily to you? Because that's important when you start the journey of working on your personal finances.
Wow. I mean, that's a very intense conversation. And obviously the audit is something that you can't just do like over a 30-minute coffee. You really have to engage in it. And it's obviously something you have to keep coming back to every time you want to achieve a new financial level, I suppose.
That's true. Because everything changes. It actually came out of a conversation I had with someone about the net worth calculation. A lot of people don't like doing net worth calculation. But so that's why I then broke it apart and said, let's do it as a financial audit. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just I'm putting it in a different format so that it's not like, hey, what are your assets? Why are your liabilities? Because that can be a bit, it can jolt you out of your seat. So I wanted to make it slightly simpler.
Well, it is simple, and it's also very empowering, because I think the skills audit is one of the things that lifts the person out of a self-recriminating conversation with themselves about finances. So it also leads them to start thinking about what they should be doing more of. Exactly. They can gain more value and how they can extract more value in a sustainable and responsible way going forward.
Exactly.
So I do like the audit also better than the net worth calculation. I think it's also more honest in terms of assessing a person's worth.
That's true.
So there are some interesting statements that I loved from the book, which is money is a neutral commodity. The one who owns it has complete control. And another one, which is personal finance management is the battle of the mind. Many times we are fighting the limitations of our mindset. And basically, I think one of the powerful things you talk about in the book is both how we can use our mind from a goal-setting perspective to achieve financial wellness and wealth, but also some of the things we need to confront and address in our mindset, the obstacles that you so very eloquently and very well put down in the book. So what are some of the measures that you believe our viewers can adopt to cultivate the right mindset to be in the right position in financial literacy, in financial wellness, and in generating wealth?
Number one, you need to learn. I think we look down on, any sort of like money management courses because we're like, it's my money. I'll just use it however I feel like. But if you learn, if you've got the knowledge, the skills, and the tools that come from learning about money, then it becomes easier for you to sort of like do the practical things such as budgeting, saving, and investing. Because also those 3, which are seemingly very basic, are the ones that are the stepping stones toward wealth building and all of that. So I think the number one basic thing is learn as much as you can, pick up a course, pick up a podcast, read. We're not good readers, especially when it comes to things about money, because we think, I don't have to read about it. I'll just kind of figure it out as I go. So do as much as you can to read and expose yourself to so much more information. And then also, secondly, is take advantage of free resources. In Zimbabwe, our banks have got free financial advisory services. People don't know about this. I often say to people, and they're like, no, it's not true. I'm like, just walk into a bank and say, I want to sit down and talk to a financial advisor. They will offer you those services as long as you are banking with them. Some of them, you don't even need to bank with them because they're also looking at that as an opportunity to get you to bank with them. So those sort of things are important because they open up your eyes to what is available for you in terms of financial services, financial products that can take you to the next level financially. So don't shy away. These financial institutions are there for you. They are there to serve you. And if they don't do so, you can even put it on Twitter, put them on blast. So yeah, those two, I think, are the main things that people need to start doing because we can work on our mindset if we are exposed. I think ignorance is our biggest challenge when it comes to money issues.
Definitely. And yet we always allow ourselves to render emotional reasoning when talking about our finances. So this is something you and I chit-chatted about before when we were talking about social finance. So we make money decisions from an emotional perspective, but in your book you so strongly and very eloquently highlight that money is a neutral commodity. So our relationship or what we're getting out of money is actually determined by how we're approaching it. And so I love what you're saying about ongoing learning and accessing all of those resources that are around us. And definitely, if we are banking with an institution, all those surface fees that we're paying, I mean, we should just actually be asking questions in there. We should go in there and have a cup of coffee and be like, because you're paying for it. So we should be doing those things. So I think that that's very, very powerful. And I find it also very interesting that you don't just read one book and you know everything about money. And also reading an accounting textbook isn't the place to learn about personal finances and how to generate wealth. Well, we're coming to the end of the segment, but we'll be back shortly. Powerful insights there from Shalom on cultivating a good money financial mindset, learn, equip yourself, and how the 3 pillars of budgeting, saving, and investing are kind of like the framework for having a lifelong journey of financial wellness. So we're going to take a short break right now, but stay tuned. We'll be right back with advice from Shalom about getting your voice out there from the perspective of publishing. You don't want to miss this. We're back for our final segment of the book club with Shalom Govero, and we're talking personal finances. And right now we're going to get stuck into the conversation about publishing before we get a short reading from Shalom from her book. So, Shalom, why is financial literacy important for this generation of Africans?
I think we are a very ambitious lot. I mean, we want to start the business, build the house, take kids to school all at once, right? So I think it's important for us to be financially literate so that we understand the value of, prioritizing, the value of working through certain things, and to also realize that there are foundational years. There are years maybe you may just be working on building the business. And then there'll be a year where you'll be able to build that house. And that can only happen when you're financially literate and you're able to set goals and prioritize the goals. Goal setting sounds like a very easy thing to do because people just think, oh, it's what I want. But it goes beyond that. It also tackles this issue of prioritizing. It tackles this issue of allocating necessary resources to the particular goal. So I think because we're an ambitious generation, we need to be financially literate so that the knowledge, the skills, and the tools we gain from financial literacy can help us to organize and arrange our lives in ways that are beneficial for us. So it's good for us to be ambitious, but we just need to make sure that we've got the right information that helps us to then build the life we want to live.
100%. And there's nothing like summarizing your life plan with figures that are very unemotional, and give you a quick snapshot of exactly where you are and where you want to go. So I love that, arranging our lives. So what was the publishing process like for you? And what's your next project?
So for me, I wrote the book initially, and then I thought to myself, I needed like people to give me input on the actual book itself before it went to the publishers. So the raw copy went to 3 particular people. One is a renowned author, Ignatius Mabasa. He went through the book initially, and he had serious questions for me to consider that changed some of the things that I had been saying to really mean what I meant. And then I have a good friend of mine called Heather. She went through the book as well. But I feel like she did a great job of turning my raw book into something that's readable. She really has the eye for that. And then finally, I then took it to my husband as well for him to just have a read through and say, hey, I agree with everything that's in here, because some of our stories feature in the book. And then finally I took it to the publishers, and then they did the editing, the proofreading, as well as putting everything together to make sure that I think they call it developmental editing or something like that. And then afterwards we had the book itself. So yeah, that was sort of my publishing process. I got my what's it called, ISBN number by myself. I did the book cover by myself. So that was pretty much done by the time I then went on to my publisher.
Well, I'm a fan of your book cover.
Thank you.
I think that it was very well done. And I think that there were a lot of good people that you found along the way. I know Ignatius Mabasa. He's a well-known writer of both Shona and English. Love his work. And I always find it interesting, the viewpoint that a life partner can bring to your work. Often authors, when they show their work to their life partner, there's a whole new dimension that comes to it. And so I'm always like, if you're going to write a book and you have a life partner, make sure that they also take a look at it before it goes out into the world.
It's important. I think your other question was, what's my next project, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm writing a bit of a controversial one coming up called 7 Money Conversations for Couples. And I'm delving into this whole minefield of family finance in a Zimbabwean context. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting. May just spark controversy all over, but I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the best way to kind of restructure, restore family sort of setup and breakdown. One of the things you say in your book is Zimbabwe is a very peculiar environment, but your book is also very encouraging about how to extract value from our finances within that environment.
Yes.
And it starts in the family, because one of your earlier stories in the book are of you when you were still in school, the story of 2 personalities, you and Judah, and I love that story. So I really, really, really appreciate this next book that you're doing, and I can't wait to review it on the book club.
Sure thing. I'll bring it through.
Okay, so before we have the reading from the book, quickly, just very, very quickly, Shalom, what advice would you give to young budding writers?
Number 1, set a schedule. I think as creatives, we kind of like, we'll see how it goes. But I think set a schedule, have like this is my launch date, then work backwards. So I've given my plan for writing and editing and everything, and the marketing side and everything, to my publisher, Sympathy, you know her. Mm-hmm. So she kind of checks on me once in a while. How's it going? How are we? How far are we? So if you have a schedule, it keeps you accountable. And then secondly, I think it's you need to make sure that you spend enough time with what you've written. Yeah. So reading it often and rewriting and rethinking, and then also make sure you have enough eyes on it before you take it to the publisher, because that will also refine what you've written and bring out more value out of what you've written.
Well, that's wonderful, Shalom. So let's hear from you from your reading that you've prepared for us today. And what are you reading for us? And why do you believe women need to hear this right now?
So I'm reading from the book, The Personal Finance Game Plan. It's towards the end, and I think it kind of sums up what we're talking about today. Okay, so it says, I understand that money is often a difficult topic for many to engage in. This is probably because it evokes a myriad of emotions. Consequently, it is also many times the root of conflict in relationships. In the Zimbabwean context specifically, money is arguably political too. The political environment has had a profound effect on the economics of our nation. This further conflates the complexity of the topic. Objectively, it renders any conversations around money difficult, but not utterly impossible. Money management is not easy, but not applying wisdom in your money management is costly. So start today. Don't wait until you've accumulated large amounts of money. Start working on your game plan today. Better still, pick up one financial discipline and put it into practice.
Well done. Amazing and powerful note to end the show on.
Thank you.
Well, it's been another edition of the Book Club with our guest Shalom Govero profiling her book, The Personal Finance Game Plan. See you again next week, same time, with another fabulous African female author. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, and stay true. Goodbye.